Graham in Coxon, guitar player with the band Blur.
I'm Stephen Street, record producer. I've worked with Blur since about 1991, and then very happily got involved back with Blur on this new album.
We were in Hong Kong. We didn't even know we were going to record. We'd had pressure from people, fans, etc., to do it. So we just thought, well, we can do it without telling anyone. It'll take the pressure off. But then we had this super idea to find a studio and go in there and see what happens. We didn't really know what to expect. We just did it. We've been playing with each other quite a lot. You know, since 2009, we were quite used to each other again, and it just seemed like a kind of almost an obvious thing to do.
Back in the 90s, the songs would have been demoed. You know, the bands might have been playing them as songs actually, you know, at some of their gigs.
Yeah.
And this time around, it was this kind of primal instinct. Let's try this, and they went with it.
It's an interesting record because there are going to be familiar moments like Lonesome Street and Maybe I Broadcast and these sorts of songs that people will be very familiar with. And sonically, you know, we had tons of it at our disposal, so there was maybe some sort of synth sounds, keyboard sounds that weren't particularly at the default setting of any member of the group. So they sound like something different. So there's really unfamiliar territory. I reckon a lot of people would have expected me to just put tons of guitar all over this stuff. And I just didn't want to do it. It's not a solo record. I had to sit there with 3 imaginary other members of the group, you know, in the room with us, and also I wanted it to be inspiring to the others.
It's not a record you could have made early on in your career. It's a record that is been done in a very kind of weird, abstract way. It's a bit like kind of collage work, you know. You know, the Blur record, we all know all the Blur records we've made on. They've never just been one direction. They, you know, within, I mean, if you go back to Park Life, that album, stylistically, is all over the place, but it still hangs together as a really good, solid piece of work. And I think that's what we've achieved with this record, because it goes from being something really experimental to a really kind of soul-type song to a real kind of abrasive, kind of upbeat, punky type thing. It's great, but it still sounds like Blur. I think the gods were smiling down on us. They knew there had to be at least one more Blur record that was a decent record, and I think we've achieved it.
I think Damon has this great knack of saying in very few words what I've realised I'm sort of feeling as well. And I think I've just developed a sort of telepathic way of backing him up on the guitar. And it's just what's happened over the years. Playing these songs for the first time to, you know, a smallish room full of fans, there were moments when I thought that we were all gonna levitate. It just felt this sort of power run through everyone. It was amazing. Like, there are too many of us. When it's at its height in the last sort of choruses, it just felt like something really, really special. And it's great to see, you know, an audience really, really get it.